Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Las Vegas. Will Brinson here, ready to give out some picks ahead of the 2024 NFL season. We got a full week until the NFL kicks off. College football's here. Shout out to the Wolfpack playing on this Thursday night, plus tons of great college football content on CBS Sports Network. And we are going to look at the best betting tips, tricks, fades, follows, whatever you need for the 2024 NFL season. Joining me, Mike McClure, R.J. White, Larry Hartstein will be along shortly. Fellas, how we doing? Let's dive right into it. Mike, we'll start with you. We got to look at, teams you want to fade, right? I mean, we can look whether we're looking at point differential, expected win total from last year, one score games. I don't know, Joe Flacco not being there, whatever you want to do. How are you when you look at a team, you're trying to find a team you're going to fade. Do you think there's some regression coming? Who are you identifying in the 2024 NFL landscape?
Well, it might be a little bit of a hot take, but for me, it's the Houston Texans here. I think, look, this team is a good team. They've got a great quarterback in C.J. Stroud. They've got skill position players. I do think that wide receiver room is a little crowded now, especially bringing in a running back like Mixon, who certainly is going to want the ball. But I think that division is sneaky, especially a team like the Indianapolis Colts. And then you look up and down this schedule, especially in the second half of the season, they have a number of tough games on here, a lot of them in prime time. I think the expectations are just a little too high off of that little playoff run that we saw last season. So I'm looking to fade them in a lot of these individual games and on their season win total. I think betting them to miss the playoffs or be looking at a team like the Colts to win the division is probably the best way to fade the Houston Texans.
All right, Larry Hartstein joining us as well. Maestro, how you doing, buddy? Good. RJ, when you look at a team that you would like to fade based on some regression, who are you identifying?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be the Buccaneers. They lost a great offensive mind in Dave Canales. I expect a step back for Baker Mayfield. Seems like he's kind of been put in these great situations. I'm not sure that's going to be the case this year. He's got some aging receivers, got a so-so
I don't hear or
offensive
see
line.
anything.
I think this might be a bottom five offense, actually. The defense likely overperformed last year. The edge rushers might be the worst in the league now that the Atlanta Falcons traded for Matthew Judon. So I think that's a problem. You look at their schedule, they have a lot of easy matchups if the team is good, but I'm not sure the team is good. So I could still see them going under with this schedule, under their win total, and not reaching that 9-win, number or competing for the division this year, making it a little bit of a race between the other teams in the division.
All right, so Tampa, I'm a little scared of fading only because of how they shoved it in everybody's face last year. I think the Dave Canales thing may be a little bit overblown, but I agree with you that this team, when you dig into the metrics, certainly fadeable. I agree with Houston. I think that division is really, really tough, and the odds that Houston's getting a bit steep. The team I'm going to fade. And I mean, no disrespect to Mike Ritter. I heard him on Pushing the Pile talk about it as a true dark horse Super Bowl contender. I'm fading the Browns. Like, I get that Cleveland was a good football team and a fantastic story last year. But if you look at several different things, one, you have the one score games, right? They overperformed there. They outperformed their expected win total. Two, you look at Jim Schwartz's history as a defensive coordinator, and he falls off in the second season a lot of times over the course of his career in that spot. I like Jim Schwartz a lot, but there is a history of that, and I think it's a worthwhile trend. And maybe the most important thing no one's talking about, the loss of Bill Callahan, their offensive line coach, to the Tennessee Titans. This guy is the best offensive line coach maybe in NFL history, at least one of the top 3 or 4. And I think you're going to see a big drop off in the run game. They're going to try and let Deshaun Watson throw it. He's got general arm soreness to start the season. No, thank you. I will be fading the Browns, which sounds great. And all those things make a lot of sense, but it's terrifying when I have to say, hey, R.J. White, one of the sharpest guys I know, are you backing the Browns this year as a team to follow early on?
Yeah, I love the Browns. I think they have the best defense in the league for me.
Okay.
And I'm not sure it's that close, really, when you factor in who I think is a top-tier defensive coordinator, despite what you're saying about Jim Schwartz. They had 3 offensive tackles end the year on IR. a lead right tackle in Conklin barely played. I think it's going to be a top tier offensive line if healthy, talent wise, and we'll see if the coaching matters there. But those guys have been doing it for a long time. I'm not that worried about it. Watson improved last year despite playing through injury. To me, he had some flashes. He led a big win over Baltimore in that last game before he sat out the rest of the season. I think Jerry Jeudy improves the weapons a bit. Nick Chubb improves the run game over what they got from Kareem Hunt. When he's back, he's obviously not going to be there to start the year. So I will concede that they were probably lucky to win 11 last year, but they dealt with a lot of injuries. And a healthy version of that team, I think, still wins double digits, gets back into the playoffs, and might be causing a little bit of noise in January if this defense starts to take over games.
All right, Larry, I think we got you on the hook for a fade and a follow here. Now that you're plugged in and we got all the hamsters hooked up and everything, right?
Super quick. It's the Dallas Cowboys
right,
go ahead, Mill. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to say they only seem to like to sign guys who are over 30 or approaching 30, with the latest addition being Dalvin Cook. You can't just run it back and expect everyone to stay healthy again. This roster is so top heavy, and they were so fortunate with injuries, and Deron Bland is already out. Sam Williams, one of their young pass rushers, is already out. So I see this team headed for major regression. I know the market has hammered them under. I still think there's room to go under, especially at plus 170 to miss the playoffs, when I know the Eagles are winning that division and the NFC North is really strong. The NFC West is really strong. I think the Cowboys could be on the outside looking in, but a team that I think will be taking a spot in the playoffs potentially is those Seattle Seahawks. With Mike McDonald coming over, the defensive genius, there's talent in that Seattle defensive roster, and we know how loaded the offensive roster is, and I love Ryan Grubb and 40 points a game at the University of Washington. This is a team, to me, that is being slept on a lot. I like them over 7.5 wins. That's at minus 150. But if you like them even more, you can go plus 185 to make the playoffs. Yeah, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams up front, Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, and maybe the most underrated signing of this entire offseason, Terrell Dodson, the highest graded linebacker via PFF, comes over to man the middle.
Fading the Cowboys is music to my ears because I'm back in the Philadelphia Eagles here. I love this Eagles roster. I love them in the division. Love them to be the #1 overall seed in the NFC. I think this team's starting the season 6-0. If they win that neutral site game against the Green Bay Packers, I just love the depth that they have. When you look at the offensive side of the ball, obviously health is going to be key, but starting the season, this roster is absolutely loaded. I talk a lot about running backs not mattering in the NFL. You can throw that logic out when it comes to Saquon Barkley on this roster. It absolutely makes a difference, and I think this team is going to be able to move the football down the field methodically. Yes, they still have the ability to hit big chunk plays, but I think we're going to see longer, sustained drives out of this team, a lot like you've seen from the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes really over the last 3 to 4 seasons. I love this schedule, though, for them. Get that bye right in front of that game against the Browns. I think, again, undefeated, headed to Cincinnati in week 8. Love the Philadelphia Eagles this year.
Man, I mean, if that happens, Mike, and look, there's nothing like, being in a fade against like a sharp guy like you, but that happens, my mentions are destroyed because I had the Eagles going 9-8, and Eagles fans have been peppering me for weeks. I'm going to follow the aforementioned Bill Callahan out of Cleveland and to Tennessee, where he joins his son. And I think the Tennessee Titans are kind of a sneaky early follow team here, particularly when you look at their early matchups. They get the Bears on the road, the Jets at home, Green Bay, and then at Miami before their week 5 bye. Now, I'm not saying that Will Levis is going to be Josh Allen. That's Pete Prisco's little Tuscan castle to live in. But I do think that this Tennessee team, the addition of Calvin Ridley, you have DeAndre Hopkins, who suffered an injury in the offseason, but is going to be ready to play week 1. You bring in Tony Pollard, another year of Tajay Spears. You improve with JC. You got an offensive line that's like much better. And I think Callahan will coach it up. I think this offense will be frisky. And all those teams that they're playing early in that schedule are so trendy and so popular that I think you're going to get good value on the Titans. And I think we'll see a lot of shootouts too, with this team throwing the ball way more early on in this season than they ever did under Mike Vrabel. So maybe Titans over, a market to attack, or RJ, you could look to follow another new coach and go the opposite way with an under, right? If you're looking at an early season trend.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking to play some Chargers game total unders. The excitement that Jim Harbaugh will turn the Chargers into immediate winner, and he has an elite quarterback, so maybe that is true. But the offense, I think, is going to be methodical, focused on the run game. Herbert's foot injury may continue to be an issue, even though it looks like he's going to be ready to start the year. The defense looks incredibly weak up the middle to me. I think teams will be able to run on them as they have for a long time with this team with the lead, and that will cause games to stay in the 30s. Their first three games, though, are Vegas, the Panthers, and the Steelers, and I can't see any of those games breaking 40. So I think you can probably get all of them around that 42 range right now, and I think all of them are going to finish under 40.
And I'm looking at overs early in the season here, but early in games. I'm talking first quarter overs early in the season for the NFL here. We've talked about rule changes all the time, but I think it's significant this year, especially with the new kickoff rules. So just testing in preseason in that little span, we saw about 4 yards in additional average starting field position. And I'm speculating that that number is going to be closer to 8 to 10 yards in week by week situations. And the reason for that is typically when you're talking about preseason games, the players playing hardest on the field there are kickoff team guys. Those guys are fighting for roster spots on teams way more than guys on the return side of the ball. I am very bullish on just the new return rules in general. I think it's going to, again, add around 8 to 10 yards of average starting field position, which I think is really critical. And if you happen to get a score, whether it's you're closer to field goal range, you get that same benefit coming back the way. So I think that the hip drop rule on the tackle, I think there are a few things that are going to lead to just a little bit more scoring. And I think we see it in the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season.
Well, Mike, that meshes well with my play, and that is Jacksonville Jaguars games over. I think they're going to play a lot of games in the 50s, especially early in the season. Trevor Lawrence got paid, and they are paying him to air it out. They got Gabe Davis to run down the field. Brian Thomas, we saw him beat coverage deep. And then you can still have Christian Kirk, and you have a bad secondary, maybe one of the worst secondaries in all of football. When you say Tyson Campbell is a #1 corner, that is a mistake. That guy had a few good games in 2022. And then on the other side, Ronald Darby, 5th team in 6 years, and then Darnell Savage at safety. All these guys are bad in coverage. So if they cannot get to the quarterback with Eric Armstead and Josh Allen, and get to him right away, they are going to be lit up in the passing game. And I think they're going to do a lot of damage deep. So I'm going to go over on the Jaguars.
I got an over on the Arizona Cardinals. Same sort of reason, right? And I think you can even make the argument Cardinals defense is way worse too. I mean, the Cardinals have like a SEC level, actually it's just more like a G5 level pass rush out there. All due respect to the gentleman manning the edge here. They don't have anybody that can slow it down. And I thought we saw with Drew Petzing's offense last year when Kyler Murray came back. This team can kind of cook a little bit. You know, you have the pieces there. Michael Wilson, second year. Of course, they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Trey McBride looks like a top 5 tight end in the league already. Greg Dortch, shout out Greg Dortch in the best ball streets. And I just think you could see an explosion of offense from this team. And I didn't throw this to the producers, but I'll tack it on just because it's the same sort of principle. And I think they play the Jaguars early. The Miami Dolphins overs. This is a team with no pass rush. All their edge rushers are on injured reserve to start the season. And you have Tua, who just got paid as well. I think they'll be chunking it around. They played, I think, the 13 games of the second half lead last year. They're going to have a ton more opportunities to throw. And we know that offense can score. Lots of great tips here on what to bet early on in the season. You are going to want to join SportsLine.com to get more best bets and model picks. And you can get a 60% off. That's right, 60% off an annual plan. Go to sportsline.com/join and use promo code winners for 60% off. That's promo code winners. We'll be back with more best bets next. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White here to give you some best bets for week 1 of the NFL season. Man, that feels so freaking good to say. Football is here. As I mentioned off the top, and I will shamelessly plug again, my Wolfpack plan tonight on Thursday. We get NFL next Thursday and Friday, actually. A little Brazil action. Mike, look at the full slate, week 1. You get one best bet. Where are you headed with your first pick?
I like the Minnesota Vikings here, Will. You know, when I look at this matchup here with the Giants, yes, it's a road game. It's difficult to win games on the road in the NFL. There's no disputing that. But the price point, I can't get over it here. I make them a -2.5 favorite here. I think it's a great play on the money line. I think it's a great play -1. You got to talk about the quarterback situation because Sam Darnold, he's definitely an upgrade, in my opinion, from Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, Jaron Hall. I would argue that he's equal to Kirk Cousins. If you go look at a betting market, look at these two quarterbacks, there's no difference in these two quarterbacks, half point at most to a betting line between those two quarterbacks. But the offense itself got better. You get a big upgrade in Aaron Jones in the backfield, a true dual threat in terms of run game and catching passes. Justin Jefferson's healthy. Jordan Addison. I like Jalen Naylor as well. We know that Vikings defense is going to be able to put some pressure on the Giants. I think that they should be a little bit bigger favorite here. I like the Vikings here in week 1.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Brazil and I'm going to get in Mike's way a little bit with his Eagles love, and I'm going to take the Packers +3. I love Philly this year. You know, I think I only have about 5 teams ahead of them in my power ratings. I just can't get behind them being 3 points better than Green Bay. Jordan Love played like an MVP in the second half. You know, I believe his pace was something like 38 touchdowns, 2 interceptions over his last 8 games. And then we saw what he did to the Cowboys. He has a strong stable of weapons here that's going to test that Philly secondary that had those additions, you know, those rookies, and we think they're going to be better this year. But it is a pretty big test with all the firepower that Green Bay can throw at them. And I think the market is going to underrate the Packers defense early on. Getting that new DC in there, Jeff Hafley, is huge with their talent. It always seems like they underperformed and they were never equal to the sum of their parts in the Barry area there. So at best here, I think Philly should be -1. I wouldn't hate if this was a pick 'em on a neutral field. Now that we're seeing 3 in some spots, love getting Packers +3.
Cowboys rookies Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe, they graded out really well in the preseason, and there's a lot of optimism that they're going to be long-term, very solid starters. But week 1 at Cleveland, Myles Garrett, Za'Darius Smith, Jim Schwartz, they are waiting for them. This is just a bad spot to start your career for those rookie offensive linemen against the #1 defense in the NFL, and we know that they had huge splits in terms of home versus road. So I think the Cleveland defense is going to dominate game 1. Guys, I bet this so long ago when the Browns were +1.5, and now they're laying 2.5. So I'm going to play them on the money line still, you know, to avoid those narrow 1 or 2 point wins. I just think the Browns are getting good news on their O-line with Jack Conklin activated off the PUP list. Maybe Jedrick Wills comes back too. That's all good news to try to slow down Micah Parsons. I'll take the Browns in week 1.
Yeah, and let's not sleep on the fact that this Cowboys defense before Mike McCarthy brought in Dan Quinn was an absolute dumpster fire to Mike Nolan's. And I think Mike Zimmer's a good coach, but Dan Quinn was a big piece of that puzzle for several years. I am going to stick with my brand here in multiple ways and go to Sunday Night Football and take what is essentially a double Uno reverse revenge game for Matthew Stafford against the Detroit Lions. He got to return to Detroit in the playoffs with a chance to win and get revenge against his little team, or maybe they were getting revenge on him. And yet they weren't able to pull it off. So now he's going to go back to Detroit on Sunday night. You have these really high expectations for this Lions team. I think the Lions are going to be great. I love their over on their win total for the year. I think they are a viable Super Bowl contender with one of the best rosters in football. But you have a really, really good coach in Sean McVay. You have a great revamped offensive line ahead of Matthew Stafford. Puka Nacua, I think, is going to be fine here. Jordan Whittingham flashed a little bit. They have DeMarcus Robinson. Colby Parkinson's a sleeper for this offense. I think the Rams are going to have a monster year on offense. And defensively, Aaron Donald's loss is huge, but they made up for it with the 2 FSU additions in the draft to a degree. I think it'll be enough to stay within a field goal. What will be a great Sunday night game to close a great week of football. I like the Rams to keep it within a field goal, cover that 3.5 that you're getting now. Mike, what's your second best bet of week 1?
Highly speculative here. Going to be backing Jaden Daniels in week 1, +3.5. I think the number should be 2.5. Getting north of a field goal. I just don't love this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. I think this is a team that if they win games like this, it ends up being a field goal or less win. I think Daniels is going to show this true dual threat ability early in the season, especially in this particular game. I like the skill position players. I like the running game. I think they're going to be able to run the football a little bit, just enough, really. But to me, it's just a competitive game back and forth, and I'm not ready to make the Buccaneers a 3.5 or 4-point favorite some places in the market unless they're playing the Carolina Panthers or the New England Patriots. Any other team, it should be 3 at most, not 3.5. So I'll take the points here with the Commanders.
Yeah, Larry talked about, getting the Browns early. I got the Browns early too, at +1.5. And what I also did is threw them in a teaser to get them up to +7.5 against the Cowboys. Tease them with the Bengals, getting them under 3. Even though this line has got up to 9 and we knew it was going to rise pretty quickly, I still love the Bengals -9 as my other pick. Burrow healthy for once going into the season. I looked up Joe Burrow health on Google, like you do at this time of year, and it said he's on the cover of a Men's Health magazine. I'm like, who is this guy? This isn't the Joe Burrow I know. So that's going to be great for him to be back on the field. Jamar Chase not back at practice. I think with those two guys healthy going into the season, this line should be double digits. We look at New England. They don't have the offense to compete here. Defense traded away its top edge rusher. Focus for them is already on 2025. I think the line's going to close at 10 or higher. We already see it bumping up in a lot of places. It's 9.5. I think get it before it gets to 10. If you only have 9.5, take that. But I think there's still a few 9s out there. So that's my best bet for week 1.
Mike McDaniel put up 36 points in week 1 last year. We've seen him come out hot, put up a ton of points in September after having a whole offseason to tinker with those weapons, which this season include a healthy Devon Achane and Jonnu Smith and Waddle and Hill. And I just love the matchup against the Jaguars defense, which is why I'm going over 26.5 points. That's the team total for the Miami Dolphins against a terrible Jacksonville secondary. Now, Jacksonville does have a good pass rush, but Tua gets rid of it so quick to all of those weapons that I think Miami's going to have no trouble getting to 27. I definitely expect them in the 30s in week 1. We saw it last year. The Dolphins are tough to adjust to early in the season, and then they might fade later when it gets colder.
I think I said earlier in the show, it's like, I'm pretty sure the Jaguars and Dolphins play this year. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. It's week 1. That's when they're playing. Will, way to go there. So deep in the futures, I forgot the schedule a little bit. Look, I like that play. I think that game turns into a shootout. Both teams score a ton of points. I'm going to take the second or a tie for the second biggest dog on the slate here, and that's the Denver Broncos. Catching 6 against Seattle Seahawks. I'm with you guys earlier when we said we like the Seahawks this year. I think Ryan Grubb's going to do some awesome stuff with this offense. Tons of 3 wide receiver sets, like pre-snap motion, things that are going to make Pete Carroll fall out of his rocking chair when he sees what they're doing on offense. I think Mike McDaniel gets the defense going as well. But this Denver team, Sean Payton's a really good coach. Sean Payton's a Hall of Fame caliber coach, and he has so much interest in making Bo Nix look good, especially ahead of the week 2 matchup against Russell Wilson in the ultimate revenge game of 2024, that you're going to see a really well-scripted offense from the Broncos. I think we see a great season from Javonte Williams. They have enough weapons in there. They've sort of trimmed it down. Tim Patrick out. Marvin Mims going to play a role. Cortland Sutton, of course, still there. I think this Denver team keeps it within a field goal, keeps it close, and you have a real advantage here too. Again, the Peyton, again, I like Mike McDaniel, but you have an advantage, first-time head coach against a long-time head coach who's motivated here to try and get the win. I will take the Broncos catching the 6. We got to give out some awards picks, of course. MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and we will do that next, coming up on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge here on CBS Sports Network. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White. We're doing some NFL picks, and we got some futures we got to get to, including Offensive Player of the Year. Not going to lie, when you do a run, look, a little peel back the curtain here. You do a rundown, everybody's got to pick one thing. You got to be a little separate on it. Mike is more efficient and faster than me, and he got to my favorite pick in this category with your choice. Who you got, Mike?
It's Brees Hall here, Will. I love Brees Hall, first of all. I personally think he might be the best running back in the NFL. He's right there as a 1B to Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion. And I think they're going to use him a lot. When you look at what they did last year with really no quarterback play, he's just a true dual threat, pass catching and running the football. He's got the durability. I think he's going to be able to handle as many touches as they're willing to give him. And I personally think that's going to be quite a few. When you look at the style of play of this Jets team, you've got a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers in there coming off a major injury. We could see a lot of short passes out of the backfield to Brees Hall, who I think is just going to continue to rack up yards. I think he's certainly going to be a force in the red zone as well. And the price point just not quite reflective. I know a lot of odds favor the wide receivers, pass catchers, but Brees Hall puts up numbers like he's a wide receiver number 3 and a running back number 1. So I love Brees Hall in this market.
Yeah, for me, a receiver's getting to 2,000 yards soon. I think it's inevitable at this point in the 17-game season. And when it happens, that guy's going to win Offensive Player of the Year, no questions asked. And Tyreek Hill isn't an offense built on maximizing his production. His pace last year, he missed the last game of the year, was about 5 yards per game shy. And you multiply that by 17 games, you're talking about one big play and then maybe a little bit here and there to get to 2,000. I expect Miami's defense to continue to struggle. It's going to keep the pressure on the offense to rack up points. So Tyreek Hill's my play here at plus 750. Might be able to get plus 800 in the market. I saw that at some point. I also like Justin Jefferson at about twice Tyreek's odds to be the 2,000-yard guy. We know how talented he is, and I'm with Mike that Sam Darnold might not be that much of a drop-off from Kirk Cousins.
Well, speaking of 2000, look at Bijan Robinson plus 2000. Arthur Smith and that mysterious love affair with Tyler Algier, he's gone. And now you have Raheem Morris, who said the game plan is get the ball to Bijan as much as possible. And you have Zach Robinson, an OC who you could see how he made Kyron Williams the centerpiece of the Rams offense when he was with the Rams. So I just think it's a great setup. You have the easiest schedule in football. You have a legitimate quarterback. You have weapons outside. Bijan Robinson, maybe 2,000 yards from scrimmage, and takes down this award.
2 quick stats for you. One, Justin Jefferson, when he returned from injury in the games without Kirk Cousins last year, was actually on pace for 2,000 yards. And Brees Hall last year, rush attempts inside the 5-yard line, one. How is that even possible? I'm going to go with Devin Achane. I think this is a guy with explosive potential, and move him out wide a lot. It feels like Jalen Waddle's still kind of banged up with some mysterious injury coming into the season. I mean, is Achane the wide receiver 2 and the backup running back at the same time for the Dolphins? If he's as efficient as he was last year, he's going to be in the minds of voters when it comes to that award. Mike, on the defensive side, any longer shots you'd like to win this award?
We have reached the Homer section of the program for today. It's going to be a Kansas City Chiefs play. It is Chris Jones. I like the price point here. You don't often see it be a defensive tackle like this win Defensive Player of the Year, but I think he's got a shot. First of all, he's likely to get 17 games. We've got no more holdout. He's been paid. That's going to be significant for him. He's been a finalist once before when he lost to Nick Bosa. That was when he last played 17 games, had 15 and a half sacks there, almost 11 sacks last year in limited action. I think that this award, they might start giving some of these awards or giving more credit to the Chiefs players this year as they're on the cusp of a three-peat as well. As long as he's remotely close to some of these other guys, I personally think that plus 2,500 number should be 1,200 right now, right around that Aiden Hutchinson range. So give me Chris Jones here, plus 2,500 Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think you really have to shop around with this award because, I like TJ Watt here. We got him plus 550 as the favorite. I've seen him plus 700. I was in Vegas this weekend. I saw him up to plus 900. And I think that's just crazy. He was robbed last year. The defense carried the team to the playoffs. He had 5 more sacks in the winner, Myles Garrett. But we saw the voters just award every single Brown. Like they're Oscar voters at this point where they just watch one thing and then they reward all those guys. Joe Flacco playing 5 games for comeback player of the year, coach, and all that. So TJ Watt has led the league in sacks 3 of the last 4 seasons, only 1 defensive player of the year award. Voters need to make it up to him. They got to have in their mind that he is the best defensive player, edge rusher in the game. And I think he has as good a chance to get to 20 sacks as anybody. And in a close race, he should get the edge because of getting him, him being shunned the last few years when he should have more than 1 defensive player of the year award over the last 4. So I like Watt. Don't love it at plus 550, but you should be able to find plus 700. And I think that's value there.
Well, at least Watt has one. Micah Parsons doesn't have any. Top three in all three of his seasons. The sack numbers have gone up each year, and he's down to his college weight. He lost 10 pounds. He's quicker. Mike Zimmer's going to move around more. They said he was very easy to double team last year because of the way that Dan Quinn kept him in the same formation. So I think Micah Parsons has a great shot to take it home.
I'm going to go with Danielle Hunter here. You look at this guy getting added to the Texans in the offseason. Will Anderson's actually ahead of him when it comes to the odds to win it. I think there's a really good chance the Texas defense is awesome. I think Danielle Hunter's a better pure rusher than Will Anderson, both very good players. But if this Texans team, and I know we talked about fading him before, I think that's possible. But if they're a really, really good team and they live up to expectations, that defense is going to get lots of attention. You're playing for D'Amico Ryans. The upside's there. Derek Stingley playing great on the back end, too. They've got some just talent across the board. I think Hunter could come in there and pile up some sacks. I like him in that spot. Mike, if you're looking for an MVP best bet, which way are you headed?
Straight chalk here. It's Patrick Mahomes. I love this team for a three-peat this year. And look, I think this is the best offense Patrick Mahomes has had since he's been in the NFL. You look at the Kansas City roster, it finally has some names that I think are very likely to catch footballs. And I think this team's going to continue to have that great defense. You look all around. I think this is the best roster that they have had. And when you talk about some of the narratives, I think they're going to lend some credit there when you're talking about a potential three-peat. And then looking at the schedule, they start in primetime against the Ravens, week 2 against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They play the 49ers. They play the Bills on the road. They play CJ Stroud and the Texans. I think this schedule helps a lot, just a lot of primetime, a lot of eyes out there. I like Patrick Mahomes, absolute chalk for a great reason this year.
I'm going to go with Jordan Love. You can find him 14-1. I talked about his pace from the last 8 games, that last 2 months. Translate that over a full season. We're talking 70% completion rate, 4,569 yards, 38 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Then you go into the playoffs, you blow out an elite Dallas Cowboys defense at home, nearly win in San Francisco in the playoffs. Look, the learning curve is over for him. He settled into the offense with some really good weapons, strong offensive line, and an elite offensive coaching staff. And I like to compare him to CJ Stroud, who I also like, but I don't think Love should have any longer odds than Stroud. I think Stroud's kind of the name in this category that everybody's going to be like their dark horse if they don't want to pick a Mahomes type. And I don't think Love is getting enough hype. His odds should be what CJ Stroud's are to me. So I think you're getting value if you get him at 14-1.
Jalen Hurts had 20 turnovers last year, which is an abomination, but 15 of those were interceptions, and he only had 16 turnover-worthy throws. So he was extremely unlucky, whereas C.J. Stroud, we all know, was very lucky with only the 5 picks on probably as many turnover-worthy throws. I just think it sets up beautifully for Jalen Hurts. When you add a weapon like Saquon Barkley, those dump-offs could go for 60 or 70 passing yards for Jalen Hurts. The weapons are incredible. Kellen Moore is going to play a faster pace. That means more offensive plays, a lot more pre-snap motion. He's rejuvenated. He almost won the MVP a couple of years ago. The money's coming in on him. This has crashed from 1,600 down to where it is now, but I still like it. Jalen Hurts for MVP.
Yeah, Eagles bottom 5 in the league in pre-snap motion last year. That should go way up with Kellen Moore. Offense should be better. I think a team. This is narrative street, and obviously, look, if the Chiefs go full 2007 Patriots, you throw it all out, and Mahomes is going to win. But we saw in 2022 when the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. Everybody's like, Chiefs are dead now. They're toast. They can't win anything. Mahomes goes nuts. He wins the MVP. Well, the Bills did the same thing this offseason. They trade Stephon Diggs. Everyone's writing him off. No one thinks Buffalo can win anything. Everyone's like, Josh Allen got called a little overrated in some the Athletics quarterback rankings this offseason. Josh Allen's going to come out with his hair on fire. Dalton Kincaid's going to have a monster year. Khalil Shakir, a monster year. Keon Coleman, big season. I'll throw out a Mac Hollins big season. I think Josh Allen slings it around, scores a bunch of rushing touchdowns, and is very much in play to win MVP. Maybe we'll see. Maybe the Super Bowl. We'll discuss that though after the break, as long with NFL Survivor Pool tips, who to avoid, who to ride in Week 1. We'll tell you next on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Picks Show. NFL season kicks off in a week. That means the start of Survivor leagues. I think I had one of my buddies texted a Survivor League like entry thing to 3 different group chats at one point today, just firing them off. Everybody's trying to join. There's no pool. There's too many pools. You can't have too many pools. And to talk about Survivor picks, we got to look at it, RJ. You're the Survivor master. You built a whole database, a matrix, if you will, on SportsLine.com. Use promo code winners, get 60% off your first for the annual subscription to look at what to do with survivors. And you go on chalk here, week 1. There's one very obvious team in week 1, right?
Yeah, and I am going chalk. It could be worth saving the Bengals for a tougher week, but this is the easiest matchup they'll have all year. They get to face a new coach. I already like them with the -9, like I said, so I definitely think this is going to be a double-digit win. And actually, I'm not sure week 1 is that easy. It's the week we always know the least about. We analyze these teams for months. We think we know, and then Houston takes fire coming out of the gate, and things like that happen every year. I don't want to trust the Bills. We see the market going against them and kind of backing the Cardinals in that game. I think playing Seattle or Chicago is a little too risky, though I don't mind the Seattle play, even though I know you're on Denver. So if you have multiple entries plays, I think put one on Cincy, or put some of them on Cincy as the chalk play, and then maybe throw in Seattle as like your contrary play. But single entry, I'm just playing it safe and taking the Bengals.
Yeah, most likely the Bengals do win, but Jamar Chase situation still unsettled. Jacoby Brissett played some good football last year. I'm going to save the Bengals for later on when they get to host the Raiders and play the Tampa Bay Bucks against Washington, a rookie QB starting on the road against a veteran defensive mind like Todd Bowles. Seattle is another good option in the same exact situation, a rookie going on the road against a great defensive mind. But I think I want to save Seattle for week 5 against the Giants. I'm going to play the Bucks in week 1 and hope the Patriots pull off a shocker.
And I'm going extremely aggressive here. I'm playing the Minnesota Vikings -1 on the road, breaking a lot of rules here. But this is a spot where I don't see myself using this team again, and I'm extremely confident in their ability to win this game. If you're looking to back Minnesota this year, when do you want to do it? I think you want to do it when you know Justin Jefferson's on the field, when Aaron Jones is on the field, when they're healthy. That's week 1. I love this spot for them. I'm not going to use them again because they're only favored in 2 other games this year. And the biggest time they're favored is -2 against the Arizona Cardinals. So I personally am going to save the Bengals for week 6, break the rule again, and play them on the road against the same New York Giants team. But give me the Vikings here in week 1. We are planning to win the Survivor this year.
That is chili pepper spicy. I love it, man. Look, hey, here's the thing about the Bengals and the Patriots, and you're not wrong. The Bengals should blow the Patriots. Patriots look like a bad football team. Jacoby Brissett, but like, if the Bengals somehow lose that game, the Patriots find a way to win. You go from being in a league with 100% of the people to being in a league with 10% of the people. Like 90% of your Survivor League is going to be wiped out if that happens. So I do like going contrarian, but I agree it is the safest play. I'm going to go with the aforementioned Bills. I know it's not like Arizona's trick. I know I hyped up Arizona. Think they're going to score a bunch of points, but Buffalo's healthy-ish on the defense. Matt Milano injury a concern. Josh Allen's going to be able to put up as many points as he wants against this Arizona defense. I think Buffalo finds a way to win. RJ, one of the things about Survivor pools that gets tricky is the holiday schedule. A lot of times you have to play the Thanksgiving, have to play the Christmas week, because the NFL is insistent on Christmas games, even if it's on a Wednesday or Tuesday, a made-up day, whatever. It doesn't matter. How are you playing the Thanksgiving and Christmas weeks?
Yeah, and the bigger pools you split up and have 20 game weeks instead of 18, because you have the Thursday Thanksgiving plus the Black Friday game as one slate on its own. You have the Christmas slate on its own plus that Thursday game they're going to play right after that. So I think Thanksgiving has 2 great options: Cowboys against the Giants at home and the Chiefs against the Raiders at home, plus a solid option with the Lions against the Bears. Christmas is trickier. Not sure that I can trust Chicago against the Seahawks, or even the Ravens at home against the Texans. So I think saving Kansas City for that one is key. Most people are going to have that plan of Dallas for Thanksgiving, Kansas City for Christmas. If you want to pivot, you go Kansas City on Thanksgiving and Baltimore on Christmas, and just trust that Baltimore's going to be able to take care of Houston, maybe a step back for Houston. But I think that's your plan for the holidays there, is saving 2 of those big teams for those slates.
We look at minefield weeks as well. My suggestion for a minefield week would be week 1. This is as hard as a week 1 as I remember in recent years. There's 3 spreads at 6 or more. We talked about the Seahawks against the Broncos at home. You have the Bills late 6, I believe, against Arizona, and then you have, of course, the Patriots catching 9.5. It's just a tough week, and there's so many unknowns with these new coaches and everything. Is there another week, RJ, that stands out as a major minefield week on this schedule?
Yeah, I think that Sunday, Monday slate on Thanksgiving week, if you have to split up the weeks, is a pretty big one, especially if you do burn Cincinnati in week one. They play Pittsburgh that week. I think that's a pretty solid play. So if I was going to save Cincy, like Mike is here, I'm going to save him for that week. Top options aside from Cincy is probably going to be the Jets at home against the Seahawks. And then after that, you're looking at road games. You're looking at Cleveland at Denver, Indy at New England. So I think that one's tough. I think week 15 is going to be tough if you do use the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Other options are things like the Ravens on the road against the Giants, if you're able to use them. San Francisco at home against the Rams, Arizona at home against New England. And if the Rams are struggling early, week 7 it becomes tough because they play the Raiders there. That's kind of like the one big game to feature with them. Only Buffalo versus Tennessee to pivot to. So if you've used Buffalo at that point, that could be a little bit of a struggle as well.
All right. Hopefully you can survive the entire season. Every NFL team is trying to do the same thing. Survive all the way to the Super Bowl. Who are our Super Bowl picks? We will tell you coming up next on The Early Edge. Welcome back to The Early Edge NFL Picks Show. There's one pick that matters for everybody. It's the Super Bowl pick. I mean, at the end of the day, you pick the right Super Bowl winner, you feel like a true champion. You don't get a ring, but you feel like a champion, but you get that bet slip, which might be better than a ring. Mike, I know we touched on a homeristic pick, or two of them with Mahomes and Chris Jones. You get a stick on the homer wagon here and take the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl to get the three-peat done?
I am. It's a three-peat. And the beautiful thing about me being a homer is this team bails me out consistently. Patrick Mahomes is just absolutely elite, but I love this team, right? You look at both sides of the football. I think they have great units. Again, the best, most complete team that Patrick Mahomes has played on since he's joined the NFL. I think that this team is going to have a lot of success in the AFC. I think they're a virtual lock to get back to the playoffs. And when you talk about Patrick Mahomes and this team, what they can do in a one-game playoff situation, they've shown that they can go win football games on the road. And I think that is significant here. The experience matters. I love this roster. They're all in right now on this window, as they should be. And once again, I think they should be the clear-cut favorite.
I'm going with the Lions, 12-1. I believe they are as good as San Francisco in the NFC, but you get twice the value taking them over San Francisco. They kept their elite coaching staff together. They made some big upgrades on defense, on the interior with DJ Reader, and in the secondary with Carlton Davis and some draft picks. And they're going to be hungry with how last year ended. They know they can beat San Francisco, but they let that game slip away. And I think this is kind of the big, coming out party for them. And they're going to play the Chiefs. It's going to be a tough game in the Super Bowl, but if anybody can do it, I think it's this offensive staff and what we've seen from them in the past. I think they can beat anyone when they're at their best.
I agree with everything RJ said, so I'm just going to ask you guys one question. Have you seen the Netflix documentary Receiver and the way Amon-Ra St. Brown gets ready for a game by looking at a notebook of the 16 receivers taken ahead of him and then going out there every day and proving? I mean, that got me so fired up because the Lions are also my pick. I just love the example he's setting. I think Jameson Williams is the breakout guy that helps them get to the next level offensively, and agree with RJ about all the defensive upgrades.
Yeah, I have no problem I have the Lions in the NFC Championship game, losing to my Los Angeles Rams, but I have no problem with the Lions representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. They're just a really good team. They have maybe the best roster in all of football that nobody's really talking about. Now, if they run into the Chiefs, it's a whole different story. I personally, however, have the Rams against the Bills. That's 150-1 if you want to bet that exacta, by the way. But I have the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, winning the Super Bowl. That's right. Just like 2022, Patrick Mahomes loses Tyreek Hill, goes and wins the Super Bowl. Josh Allen loses Stephon Diggs. He's going to go and get it done. He's going to win MVP. He's going to win the Super Bowl. Chairs and tables are going to be broken, jumped through, destroyed. All kinds of carnage in Buffalo. Dalton Kincaid might lead the league in receptions. I know Pete Prisco bandied that about. I don't think it's impossible. You got to get through the Chiefs in the playoffs. That's the hard part, right? Getting there is the easy part. But I think it's going to happen. And frankly, I would be fine if the Lions won it too, right? I mean, Detroit deserves something nice, don't they? Detroit deserves something nice. Buffalo deserves something nice. No offense, Mike. I think the Chiefs have had plenty of nice things. I don't know that they necessarily. It would be fun to see a three-peat though. So I'd be down for that. All right, great stuff As always, fellas, we'll be back every week to give you our picks for the NFL season. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the Early Edge podcast on YouTube. Thanks for watching. See you guys.